It's official!
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Legally Unapologetic. I am your host, Octavia Green. Guys, oftentimes life presents us with unpredictable challenges, which may cause us to not only pivot our focus and our attention, but even our careers. Now, this week's episode is a very personal one, and I have the opportunity to sit down with not only a wonderful mom and wife, but also an attorney, Tara McMillan. Now, Tara and I's relationship stems back from law school. After we graduated from the University of Miami School of Law, we ultimately ended up at the same law firm. So our relationship is a personal one, but we've also been able to see each other progress professionally. And through that relationship, we've been able to not only see each other progress in life, but we've also been able to talk about life. Tara is now a mom of 3, I'm not going to say young boys because she has a teenage son, as well as 2 toddlers under 2. She's also a wife, but she's also an attorney. And oftentimes we find that having to balance all of these roles can sometimes become overwhelming. In this week's episode, Tara and I discuss just that. What does it look like when you have to leave something that you love and something that you've worked so hard to obtain? Does that mean that you failed if you have to ultimately pivot? We're going to explore just that, and I'm so excited about today's conversation. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Legally Unapologetic. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Legally Unapologetic. Sis, first off, let me say thank you.
You're welcome.
Because you are extremely busy. Mom, businesswoman, wife, lawyer, content creator. Guys, I have to tell y'all, this season I am extremely blessed because I have people in my circle. They know I'm a new content creator, new podcaster. They are behind the scenes working hard with me to make this happen. So I wish y'all could see the setup. Maybe season 2 or 3 we'll do it a little bit bigger where y'all see the whole studio setup. But just know that we are working to bring you guys great content. So
sure.
I want to share this space. I'm excited to share this space with you, especially for the next 45 minutes or so. So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tara McMillan. I am, as Octavia said, a lawyer, a mom, a wife, a content creator, if you'll call it that. But, I'm pretty much wearing a lot of different hats. Octavia and I met in law school. Yes. We kind of traveled together everywhere.
Yes.
Law school, firm, Florida to Atlanta. We're here now. So we've had a journey together, but Octavia's a really good friend, and I think I'm excited. I'm excited to do this, really excited to talk about this. Octavia's mentioned that she wanted to do this for a while, so I'm super happy that she started, and it's going great, and I'm excited to see what's to come. So that's me.
Well, look, I am excited as well, and again, thank you so much for being a part of this production. As you just mentioned, our relationship has grown over a span of time. We've had the opportunity to go from students to professionals. As you mentioned, we moved from Florida to Atlanta together, or separately, but the plot was there.
Right.
So what people don't know is Tara and I were actually driving. I have to share the story. We were driving to a conference probably in February 2020. And I think you were one of the first people I told, like, look, this clerkship is starting, but I want to go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And at the time you were like, that's funny.
Yeah.
I have something brewing too. I want to go to Atlanta as well. So the goal there, right, at the time, we wanted to move to Atlanta, personal reasons, professional reasons, but we had a satellite office here in Atlanta. Our firm had just started the office probably 2 or 3 years prior to 2020. and we really wanted to grow it, right? We're in
Yeah, we
Atlanta, and it's one of those things. It's like, wait, why is there no
Where are
black
the
people?
black
So it's like, okay, this is the plot, right? We're going to leave South Florida and we're going to move to Atlanta with the goal being to promote and grow that office and the number of black attorneys that represented that office. Please tell us what was going on with you during that time that facilitated that move to Atlanta.
Yeah, sure. I, got engaged. We were having that whole conversation about who's gonna move. I was in Florida at the time, and my now husband was in Georgia, and he's not a lawyer, he's a veterinarian, and he, was growing his practice, growing his client base, and we kind of had a come to Jesus moment when we were like, okay, one of us is really gonna have to move. And, it made more sense for me to move because we had that office in Atlanta, and I had come many a time to visit that Atlanta office, and he was like, you will still be able to keep your job and be here, versus if I have to leave, I'll have to get a whole new job, start all the way over. So we decided, I begrudgingly came to Atlanta. I was like, I'm gonna miss South Florida.
You love it.
But, I'm happy that I came. I love the city from before. So I came, and it was weird. We moved in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes.
We moved, I officially moved in June of 2020, so the pandemic hit in March. And believe you me, when I was moving, the week I was moving was supposed to be the week of my wedding.
Yes, it was a lot going on.
Right, and we had to postpone things. So it was a tricky time to move, but moved here, got settled in, and continued working at the firm remotely, and working with my core team, and, talking to Octavia, checking out, but that's kind of the reason behind my move. My husband didn't want to come to Florida,
so you moved to Atlanta, all right? And I remember I was talking like, okay, I only got a couple more months left of this clerkship. At that time, I hadn't let it be known that I really wanted to move to Atlanta. I was still searching for jobs, and you were sitting for the bar, but you were also expecting.
I was.
So you just had a lot going on in your space. Now, I want to spoil it because this is an interesting story. We're going to get there eventually, but I'm going to spoil it for the listeners. You left the firm before I could get here. Now, at first I was a little like, how you going to just get up and move? But, it was one of those things now. I mean, I forgave you then because when we had that conversation, we had, our sister circle, and it's like, you know what? Like, this is what's going on. I just can't continue to move in this space. I understood it. So if you would be willing, please share, what was going on with you mentally, physically, emotionally, during that time that ultimately led to your transition outside or out of the firm, rather.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start by saying, when I joined that firm, I was a for-lifer. I think we all. I mean, and I still to this day love that firm. I was a for-lifer. I said I was going to summer there. I joined the firm. I was working with an amazing team, loved everybody that I worked with. All was well in the world of what you needed to do and where you needed to be for the kind of work I wanted to do. So on paper, it was literally the perfect scenario. But as we know, big law is its own beast, and no matter where you do big law, it is what it is. And I think, as I continued to practice and the clients kept coming, and, our year, we kind of had a cycle every year. It was busy at one point where you just didn't have enough time to do the work. And then you'd have some times when you're like, okay, I can breathe. Very little time. You could be like, okay, you could breathe. But I realized that I was not able to even enjoy the slow periods because the pressure to build, the pressure to always be, maximizing the time that you have it's real. So even when you're not extremely busy, you find a way to become busy.
Exactly.
And then, my personal life suffered. At the time when I was in Florida, I had I guess he was about 8. My son and I lived there, and I was not seeing him as often. There were times when I would stay at work until the sun came up and then go home. Thankfully, my mom was here to help. I'd go home, kind of shower, take my son to school, and then go right back to work. So I was missing a lot of school shows, you know, a lot of little things that, you know, parents do. Yeah. Parents show up for their kids, and people understood at times, and I'd be like, I absolutely need to go and do this for my son. So I will say that. But there were times when I just felt the pressure internally to be like, okay, I cannot be that mom or that person, that associate who's always finding, you know, something to have to leave for. I just internalized that a little bit. And also, you know, whenever I had a doctor's appointment, I would tell you, I have a doctor's appointment to go do a checkup, or I have a doctor's appointment because something's going on with me, and I would cancel them. I would cancel them or try to reschedule because this client needed me. This document needed to get filed. We were trying to meet the demands of everyone who really, like, they want what they want and they don't really care what's going on with you.
That part.
And I was in the throes with my team, partner I worked with. We were kind of in it together. And I just let my health start deteriorating. Yeah. My health just started to deteriorate. There was things wrong and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I'm no doctor, so of course I wouldn't figure out what it was unless I go to get seen by a doctor.
Right.
And I just wouldn't go. And it would just be normal for me. I'd be like, oh, I'll cancel that appointment. I'll find some time another day. And I'll figure it out when I have some time to breathe. And my fiance at the time was starting to get annoyed, if I want to put it lightly, with me kind of putting my health on the back burner. And he realized that because of how I am, I put everything before myself. So if work is demanding, I'm always going to put work ahead of my own health, which is very bad to do. But a lot of us lawyers do it. A lot of us do it. I think the pressure too, as a woman.
Yes.
And as a Black woman.
Yes, that part.
In the legal profession, you kind of want people to see your value, and you're constantly dealing with imposter syndrome. You're constantly feeling like, I wonder if everyone's looking at me thinking I'm the token and that's why I'm here. It's like you deal with that, whether it's true or not. Mentally, we carry that load everywhere. So I always just try to be present at work, show up on time, stay there later than everybody else, work really hard, and just kind of put my health to the wayside. And he was like, listen, you're not well, you're always sick, you're always tired, you always have migraines, you need to get checked out. And like, I'm not doing this with you anymore. Like, you need to go to the doctor. Whatever is happening can happen without you there. And if you keep ignoring your health, you're gonna die. And like, when you die, what do you think is gonna happen? The work is still gonna be there, and it's gonna get done.
Exactly.
They're gonna find somebody else to do it. Right? So I, we tussled a little bit about it because I'm like, you don't understand. My husband's not a lawyer. He's a veterinarian. He deals with cute dogs and cats every day. And it's just like, I'm looking at paper. But, I think I tried to explain to him that he didn't understand what I had to deal with.
Right.
But really, that was me fooling myself into thinking what I was doing was okay. And it just wasn't.
No.
So that was one of the central things. My health was deteriorating. I wasn't paying attention to that. The other thing is, my son, as you know, kids are, this year they're into this, next year they're into that.
Right.
And I remember having a specific conversation with him where I was like, hey, I don't have to work on Sunday. I don't have to work on Sunday, so we should go to the park and play some basketball. You want to play basketball? And he said, I stopped liking basketball last year.
And I remember when you told me that, sis. I remember when you told me we had that conversation.
Like, wait, when did you stop liking? I thought you still love basketball. That goes to show you how absent I was. And even when I was physically present, my mind was not there. And I would always be thinking about work. I would dream about work. I would, eat, sleep, breathe work. And I just was not showing up the way that I wanted to show up for my son, for myself, for my husband. And I realized that, when I moved to Georgia, it was a little bit better. I'll say, because it was a pandemic, we were all inside. But somehow I managed to work more being home. And, you know, I was pregnant. I was studying for the bar.
Multiple heads, as always.
Right. And I was just kind of like trying to manage my household in the middle of a pandemic. And something just, like a light switch just went on in my head. Was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't. You know, like I would try to find a way to explain why I shouldn't go to my doctor's appointment when I was pregnant. Not because anyone at work said you need to not go.
Right. But you felt like you needed to be present because if it doesn't get done, then you know, will they look at me as less than?
Exactly.
You know, if I'm not being that quote unquote indispensable associate, right? We've all heard that term. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Right.
And oftentimes it means, you know, we are in the office, the last people in, last people out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you and I, we worked in the same building for a time. I think you ultimately left us there too. I'm gonna let that slide. But even if in Miami, you know, you worked on, I guess, the 9th floor and I was on the 8th floor. And I'm sure that there were times in the evenings, like we used to make a joke about it. After 6:30, some of our white counterparts, they were going home. I don't know what they were doing at home. Some of them could have still been billing. But for whatever reason, the Black associates, especially, you know, men and women, right? I'm not going to distinguish between them, but we were still there.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like, we'd be on Jabber, right? At night and be like, you still working?
Right.
Yeah, still here.
I'm downstairs.
I'm downstairs. Okay, well, we're going to go to 7-Eleven or Starbucks isn't closing yet. Do you want something? Or we're going to order it or whatever it may be. And maybe those little breaks were, okay, let's go upstairs to the lounge. Maybe you're warming up dinner. Maybe we're going to catch 30 minutes of the basketball game just to take a break. But then we're going back into it. And then you're working, to your point, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, or some nights 5 to 6. How is that sustainable?
Right.
And eventually your body does start to deteriorate. You saw that firsthand. You saw that firsthand.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where I got to the point where I realized I couldn't do it anymore. And even if I continued to do it, I would not be the lawyer that I want to be.
Right.
I would also not be the mom that I want to be.
That part.
And I wouldn't be the you know, I wouldn't be the wife that I wanted to be. And I was newly married.
Yeah.
So
and I
gotta be the wife.
I have to pause you. I have to pause because when you say that, guys, I've known Tara now for 8+ years. You know, probably longer than that. We really, I guess it was 10 years since about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where when I say the Tara I know now is different than the Tara I knew in law school, and then even more different than the Tara I knew in her professional life. Like I told you this last year, you have a light and a glow about you now that I didn't necessarily know. Yeah. Even now when you're doing your content creation and we talk on the phone and you're laughing and you're joking, like, hold up, where does this come from? Who are you?
Stressing.
Who are you? Because it's just a totally different person, but it looks good on you. Yeah. You know, and to your point, you were newly married. That's something you definitely wanted. You know, I remember when we talked about you meeting Charles, and, you know, I was fortunate enough to see the beginning of that relationship and meet up with you guys in DC when you were visiting for Christmas. So it's like, okay, I know and I see this person makes her happy. And now she's leaning into a life, right? Outside of the profession that you want. Yeah. And why don't you deserve that?
Exactly, right? Who told us that we don't deserve to be more than just the lawyer who's billing hours and showing up and doing work and doing non-billable work in the name of the cause? Because, you know, like, the minority tax is real. Okay, let me just say that. When I do non-billable work to advance diversity in our profession, it's work that I love. Right. And it's work that I want to do, and I'm passionate about it. But it's also work on top of the billable work that you have to do. And it's kind of like the billable work is already so much, right? And you do that on top of it, then like it's just eating away more of the almost non-existent time that you have for you. Right. So I know you know what I'm saying.
No,
so,
I know.
So that's really what it was, and the decision to leave for me, it was very hard.
Of course.
Very, very hard because, you know, that is where I grew up.
But it's not even that you grew up, right? It was hard because let me just give you your flowers. You are a kick-ass attorney, right? And it's not like most people don't know. There's several caliber of lawyers, right? And there's levels to this.
Mm-hmm.
You did securities work. You know, it's like, okay, I consider myself a commercial litigator. I've seen some hard stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But securities is a whole nother beast, right?
Yeah.
So for you to then be able to master that skill at the level that you were performing, you know, when you left, you
middle to senior.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't want to call you middle aged, right? But middle to senior level attorney. But at the same time, you literally were handling your matters probably as a senior attorney because you were also the only associate on your team for a very long time.
Yes.
So you were, you know, managing and handling everything. Mm-hmm. People that don't know how this works, let me break it down for our listeners that are not in law firms. You have a hierarchy. Partners, they are the ones getting the business. Once they bring the business in, guess what? They're going to filter that business down to their associates because they can build out their associates at a lower rate versus their billable rate, which sometimes are thousands of dollars that clients are not going to pay for, right? So typically, you filter that down to a junior, you have a middle to a senior level associate that's looking over that junior and allows, you know, the rate to stay low, but at the same time, the work is filtered up before it gets to a partner.
Yeah.
You were the only associate, so there was no filtering up, right?
Filter.
You were doing everything.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the expectations and the demands that were placed on you in that space.
Yep. It does. And, you know, I joke with people that I worked with and I say I came in as a junior, but really I was doing junior, mid-level, senior associate work from my first year onwards as a lawyer because there was no other associate in my group, like you just said. So I was doing, and granted, I loved being able to do that because I was able to develop my skills a lot faster, become more efficient, do work, be client-facing, talking to clients, helping them solve their problems much sooner than I would have if I had like somebody else between me and the partner. So it was great. But as you said, like there's an additional level of stress that goes into like, oh, my work's not going to be seen by another associate before it gets to the partner. And so that's kind of how it was. And because of the dynamic in my group, I became very, very close to one of the partners that I worked with.
Right.
She was my mentor, still is. Right. And we developed a relationship outside of just being coworkers. Yes. So for me, when I was thinking about leaving, it was hard. Right. Because it's like, I'm going to leave my friend in this, like in the fire alone. Like, you know, we were together. Like we were together doing it and servicing the clients and doing the work. Like we were there. Like I would be there at 2 a.m. She'd be there at 2 a.m. We'd be doing it together. And we developed a very, very strong relationship. And I felt when I was thinking of leaving that I would be betraying her, you know, because she poured so much into me and I was giving her, you know, the result of that investment, but then here I am now leaving. Yeah. And, you know, also then like I would say, I call him my work dad, was there at the firm, advocating for me, helping me to find my voice in a humongous firm. Yes. As you know, I will say, and people don't know this about me, but I tend to be a little bit more reserved. I give you that. So yes, I tend to be a little bit more reserved. So, you know, I'm not the one that's going to be kind of like, I enter the room and you'll hear my voice. I'm much more of a, you know, listener, observing, assessing what's going on around me, and then carefully speaking when I feel like I need to interject. Right. So it was important for me to have those people on my side to help me find my voice and know that I have people behind me when I need to speak about an issue that's important, that might be touchy. Right. But I have something to say. Right. So leaving those people behind
Never
quote
easy.
unquote behind because they're still in my life.
Right.
But leaving them in the firm that, you know, I came to know them and they invested in me heavily, it was very difficult. And, you know, there were times when I questioned my decision.
Of course.
Am I doing the right thing? How are they going to take this? Because they were important to me. And, you know, my husband and I talked about it, and he was supportive because he knew that for me to get to that point where I'm going to decide to leave, there must have been like
a lot
going on. So he got it and he was supportive. And he understood, though, that it was a struggle for me. So he let me do it on my own time. He wasn't like, you need to quit, you need to quit. It's like, she's going to do what she needs to do when she needs to do it. But yeah, it was hard. And I had to have conversations with the people that I was really close to and say, hey, listen, it is not you.
This is what's going on.
But this is what's going on with me. And I purposely decided before I had those conversations with them, because I knew if I didn't decide and make my mind up and put things into motion to actually make me have to leave and had those conversations, I would have been talked out of it.
See.
So I had to do my thing. I found the role that fit me best. I, you know, signed an offer letter and got an offer and kind of had that conversation with them when I was about to leave to go into my new role. But, you know, telling them that it was tough for me to do. So, you know, that's how that went. It was hard. And to this day, sometimes I think back and I'm like, I joke with people from work and say, hey, you know, here's what I did that reminded me of what we used to do today. Right. But I am a lot happier
in this space.
I'm a lot more present in my family. I have time to do the things that I enjoy. Like, who would imagine that Tara would have the time to talk about the things that I talk about on my social media or, you know, talk about being a mom. I have 2 children under 2 right now, and I don't know how
that part
I would be able to even live.
You're able to grow and nurture a family when a lot of times, especially in this profession, that's not always the case. I definitely want to give work dad his props, right? Because it's one of those things where a lot of times in spaces, especially where there's not a lot of us, we don't have people like that that's advocating for us and pushing and creating environments where we can actually grow. And we're leaving situations, right, where any and everything that we want can be handed to us. And the money's good, you know, and the I guess the acceleration is there, or I guess career advancement rather is the word. It's there. And whatever we want to do with it, we can take it, you know? But at the same time, you're balancing what it is that you want in your life outside of this job title. I tell people all the time, lawyering is not who I am. It's what I do, but it's not who I am. So when I'm at the point where I cannot even recognize myself, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, I have to make that transition. That I didn't tell a lot of people about my decision to leave until it was time. But you and I were talking months before because you could hear it. You could hear it in my voice. You're like, what's going on? The way that you said your husband did not rush you, you know, that was kind of the grace that you gave me. So it was like, okay, we're going to talk in March. I hear it in her voice. What's going on, Octavia? Okay, we're going to talk again in May. I hear it in her voice. What's going on, Octavia? And then finally June or July, it's like, okay, I done had this conversation. I'm getting ready. I got to pivot. I got to go. And I remember this the telephone conversation we had. You were like, I knew it was going to happen, but it had to happen in your own time. Because, you know, at that point, the work product has slacked. At that point, there wasn't a lot of cares to give. And it sucks because you still, to your point, as a Black woman, want to do well. You want to exceed the expectations. You know that those eyes are still watching. And now at this point, you probably got people that's like, okay, what's she gonna do? You know, it's like, okay, I have to do this not because of the naysayers. I have to do it because of myself. Because if I don't exit stage left, guess what? I'm gonna lose myself in this space.
That's what it is. That is when you know you have to change. And not just with law, but with anything in life.
Right.
When you get to a point where the thing you love has become the thing that takes away from who you are, is when you know you need to make a change. Right. And I love practicing law.
Of course.
I nerd out about the kind of work that I do. I mean, you know me.
Securities.
Like, you know
she
me.
nerds out about securities.
You gotta love what you do if you do what I do. Like, and I love it.
Yes.
I love doing this kind of work. It fascinates me, it engages me, it stimulates my mind.
Yes.
I'm constantly challenged, which I love. So for me to get to the point where I'm like, I cannot do this. And I kept, we were like, I talked to you through what was going on in my mind when I was getting ready to make my decision.
Right.
And I recognized that for you, we had a lot of the same struggle because
right.
The people we were very
right.
close to.
Right.
But I told you what was going on with me. I told you, and then I said to you, if I don't leave now, what I am and who I am to the people that I work with and the people that value my work, it's not gonna be there anymore.
Right.
Like my work is gonna start to suffer.
Right.
And I won't be Tara anymore,
right.
like the Tara the lawyer that I was. So, and I was definitely not Tara the mom I wanted to be,
right.
or Tara the wife I wanted to be. So it's time to change.
Right.
And I left, but I still do to this day practice the same kind of law, do the same kind of work, but in a setting that I feel is much less stressful for me.
More conducive to what you want to do.
More conducive to me practicing law, being a mom, being a wife, being myself,
right.
having time for everything that I want to do, and none of those things suffering too much at any given time. Mm-hmm. Because let's be real, like no matter what you do, you ain't gonna do everything perfect.
Of course,
all the time.
Of course,
always. Something's gotta give.
Right.
And me being a mom, there are gonna be times when, and I say to myself, there will be days when you are an amazing lawyer, but just an okay mom.
Right.
And there will be days when you're an amazing mom and just an okay lawyer.
Right.
And you add a wife into that mix. Like there will be days when you're great or not so great at those things. But it cannot be one thing is suffering so much that you are completely oblivious to what's going on in your marriage, in your children's life, or whatever. You have to be able to balance. It's like it's a dance.
Yes.
It's a dance, right? Nothing's ever gonna be in perfect balance.
Right.
But it's a dance you do. Today this will weigh more on this scale. Tomorrow this will weigh more. But it can be one thing kind of just taking all the weight and nothing else is getting any attention. So that's really what it is. And that's kind of, if I'm being legally unapologetic,
I love it.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
You gotta take care of you so you could be your best self as a lawyer, and me as a mom, as a wife, all that good stuff. You got to take care of you.
And I love that for you because, like I said, obviously we're sisters in the law, but you also are a friend. So to see this side is see you come out on the other side.
Yeah.
It was a very courageous thing that you did because, to your point, you were a lifer. And when you think about, the firm that we came from and the faces, right? And the people that we're actually advocating for people that look like us, but also we're making strides for people that look like us. Your name was definitely in the mix. But when you told me what was going on, and I had to support it. Came to Atlanta by myself. When I got here, you were here. But when I got to the firm, it's like, okay, what's going on? But I definitely supported the move because again, your health, your well-being, your presence in your personal life, those are all important. So I have to ask you, because I think that to sum up our conversation, does quitting really mean that you failed?
No, it does not. And I am the person who, I don't believe in quitting. So I'm not a quitter. I don't believe quitting is not a thing for me. Right. So I'm going to do what I need to do and it's going to get done.
Right.
This to me is not quitting. It is pivoting.
Okay.
Pivoting to a more conducive situation. So you are leaving the firm, but you are not quitting on you. You're not putting on your passion. You're not putting on your goal for yourself, your ultimate goal for yourself, which is, for me, it is to be a great lawyer and a great mom and a great wife and a great person, right? So I don't see it as quitting. So people might think differently, but I don't see it as quitting. I see it as pivoting to a more conducive situation.
I love that.
Yeah.
Outside of the law, how does Tara now check in with herself mentally?
Okay, so I check in with it. It depends on the day, right? Or like the week that I'm having, because with these little kids, let me tell you, I love them, but like sometimes checking in with me is going to get my nails done and like separating myself from the craziness that's at home.
Right.
That's sometimes how I check in on me. Like I go sit down, get my nails done, think about what's going on with me, what is stressing me at the moment, and find a way to release that stress.
Okay.
Sometimes it's getting on my Peloton and writing out my frustration with whatever's going on, right? Sometimes it is putting the kids to sleep and curling up on the couch and watching TV with my husband. Checking in on myself, being, okay, I recognize that I'm under stress. What am I gonna do to make myself get back centered?
Right.
So that's kind of what it is. But I ask myself that it's a constant thing. How are you feeling today? What's going on with you today?
Right.
Are you happy? Are you stressed? And depending on the answer to that question, I'll do what I need to do to kind of like get myself back to my happy place.
Guys, well, what advice would you share to our listeners who may be feeling overwhelmed, may struggle with anxiety or stress, or those that are trying to manage different hats like yourself?
Yeah.
How do you balance it all?
Again, it is a dance. That's what I call it. It's a dance to balance. You know, one day you're two-stepping over here, the other day you're two-stepping over here. What I will say is, you need to find a friend, someone who you can trust with, you know, your feelings, someone who you can trust with your judgment. Yes. Because you could trust somebody with your feelings, but they could be silently judging you, right? So you have to find a person that you could talk to about what's really going on with you, preferably someone who experiences it too. Because I think when I talk to people about how I feel and what's going on with work, I mean, when I've told people like, hey, sorry, I can't make it to this thing because I gotta work, and they're like, it's Sunday. What? So there will be people that just do not understand.
Of course.
They cannot wrap their minds around the issues that you're having. So you have to find someone who can wrap their mind around what you're experiencing, whether they're in it with you or whether they're like living with you to the point where they understand it all.
Right.
And talk to them. Tell them what's going on. But before you can tell them what's going on with you, you have to realize what's going on
that part.
with you.
Ooh, that part.
So, you know, I talk a good game now, but like, let me tell you, before, I was in complete denial.
Yeah. I think we all are.
Before you can share what's concerning you or what's going on with you with someone, you have to realize what it is. So that's what I would say. Be true to yourself.
Right.
Know when you are off balance. Know when something's going on with you. Be in tune with yourself. Don't check out in the name of the job. Right? Check in on yourself. Think about what's going on. Is this ideal? If it's not ideal and you feel like you're getting to the point where you cannot do it as well as you're doing it anymore, you need to find someone, talk to them about it, tell them your struggle, tell them what you're thinking, or ask them to help you think through your next steps. Whether it is to establish boundaries and stay in the same space, because there are people who do that. They establish boundaries, they stay in the same space, they stay in the firm, and they are successful.
Oh yeah, we know a lot of them.
And I mean, I'm no advocate for telling people to like, let's all have a mass exodus to leave the firm.
Please, this is not what this space is about, guys.
Right. So like, it's not what we do here. I support whatever you want to do. As long as you take care of you.
Exactly.
So if it's like, if you were like Tara 3 years ago and I was like, I'm up for lifer, you can't get me out of this firm, no way, no how, find a way to live within that, right? Find a way to balance what you have going on personally with your work.
Right.
And communicate that to the people that you work with, because at the end of the day, if they can't respect that,
You need to
go.
You need to go anyway.
You need to go anyway. So, and if they can respect that, then you get to do both things. But there'll be, don't get to the point where you feel like it's like, okay, I just gotta like escape everything, right? Because that's not where you want to be.
Right, of course not.
So definitely, figure out what you want. If you want to stay in the firm, establish boundaries.
Right.
If you want to leave the firm, find out what it is you want to do. Some people leave and they don't practice law anymore.
Right.
Some people leave and they continue to practice law.
Some people leave and start a podcast.
Some people leave and start a podcast, right? So like, you got to find your passion, figure out what you're passionate about. And I would just say, try to find a way to stay happy and stay grounded in whatever it is you want to do.
At that part. And I will say, I wanted to touch on briefly the point that you made about just checking in with yourself, stop being in denial. Yeah. I think one of the things I struggled with, especially when I was unhappy and going through some things, I lashed out. And I would lash out a lot towards people that actually cared about me and my well-being. And it took me some time to realize sometimes the lashing out was a response to me not being happy.
Yeah.
Right? It's easier to cut and blame other people for what you have going on instead of just acknowledging and dealing with your own mess. Yeah. Even if that means stewing in it before you can kind of relay that message or, talk to people outside of your space about what you have going on.
Exactly.
So I greatly appreciate you just being so open and candid. And find yourself a sister like Tara. Like I said, we've shared so many different conversations. Yeah. But I would be remiss if I let you go without saying thank you so much for the support that you've been in my life, professionally and personally.
Thank you too. You've been there for me too. It's not been on the street. This is two-way.
I get it. Well, look, thank you so much, sis, for coming on. Before I let you go, if you want to let people know how they can follow you, I'll give you the space to do that.
Yeah, sure. I am on Instagram, Facebook. My Instagram handle is There Goes Tara. And if you're going there to look for legal stuff, you might not find much of it. Okay? I just talk about being a mom because that is what I enjoy. I talk about my 2 little kids under 2. I talk about my now teenager. Isn't that bizarre?
Oh my gosh.
And just family life is what I talk about most of the time. But there are little sprinkles of here's what's going on with me professionally, because I feel like my ultimate goal is to just showcase all aspects of me.
Yes.
Don't put me in a box. Like, I am not, like you said, being a lawyer is not what I am, it's what I do.
Exactly.
I'm other things, so that's what I do on my page. There Goes Tara on Instagram. You might get a laugh. You might think I'm a little crazy, but you might enjoy some of the stuff.
That's that Gemini energy.
Right. It's like yeah, but that's where you can find me. And if anyone, I'll just throw this out there, is in this space and you feel like you need to talk to someone, I always tell people my door is wide open. This is something that I'm passionate about. My husband teases me all the time. He's like, you have another mentee? And I don't like to call it mentor mentee. I am a friend.
Right.
And I try to be a friend to anyone that's having a struggle in this profession, especially Black women.
Yes.
So if you need a friend, I'm here. And if you want to shoot me a message, you want to talk about something that's going on, I'm open.
And please take her up on that, guys. You guys know Legally Unapologetic. We're trying to foster a community because there's not a lot of us in this space and in this profession. And sometimes the silence can be deafening, basically.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we are creating environments, spaces, communities where you guys can all thrive, but also feel like you're seen, you're valued, and you're heard.
A safe space.
A safe space. So thank you so much, sis, for coming on to another episode.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap. So there you have it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. First off, I have to thank our guest, Tara, for coming onto the set and joining us in this week's episode of Legally Unapologetic. Tara, not only have you been supportive of my dreams throughout the years, but you're also supportive of this vision that I have to grow this platform. So I do have to thank you not only for putting yourself out there, but for believing in what I have going on and what I'm trying to do with Legally Unapologetic. I also have to thank you for all of the insight that you've shared with our listeners. Your story, your journey, your strength, that's to be admired. And I tell you that often. The strength of a Black woman to push through. Thank you so much for being so open and candid and sharing your experience. Yes, you pivoted from private practice, but now you are a kick-ass attorney for a Fortune 500 company, and I am so proud to not only call you my sister in the law, but also a friend. Listeners, I hope you were able to get a lot from today's conversation. As Tara and I discussed, sometimes quitting something that you love doesn't necessarily mean that you failed. And anytime that you're in any situation, personally or professionally, and you start to lose yourself in that space, it's ultimately time to make a change. I challenge you guys for the next few weeks to look closely at yourself. Evaluate where you are. And if you're happy, kudos to you, because happiness is work in itself, and that too is a journey. But if you're not, and you're starting to feel a little uneasy, don't ignore that. As Tara discussed, sometimes ignoring can be detrimental, not only to our mental well-being, but also to our physical well-being. I want to hear from you guys. And I encourage you to please follow us on all our social media outlets. We are available on social media. The handle is Legally Unapologetic. That's one word. Or you can follow me on my personal page, OMG_ESQ. Guys, we are just hitting the surface. And like today's episode, I have so much more lined up for you guys. Please continue to follow. And as Tara advised, please don't be afraid to reach out to someone. I'm going to make myself available. You guys have my social media handles. But as Tara shared in the episode, she welcomes any opportunity to connect with you guys, whether that be on LinkedIn or follow her on social media. I would be remiss if I did not say Happy International Women's Month, as this episode will be airing in March. Before I let you guys go, I do have to share some encouraging words. In the words of our good sis, Gabrielle Union, when you prioritize yourself, you save yourself. Sometimes people may not understand what you are going through, and honestly, it may not be for them to understand. Your journey is your own. Your journey is unique to you. Please remember that. But as you go through your journey, please remember to prioritize yourself at times. Some may call it selfish, but how can you really be there, not only for yourself, but those that you work with, if you're not checking in with yourself and you're not taking care of yourself? Please think on that. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of Legally Unapologetic. I look forward to bringing you guys more content. Please don't forget to subscribe. Streaming is available on all major platforms, and we're also rolling video here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Until next time, this has been another episode of Legally Unapologetic.